Uh, okay there, welcome USBGF. This is Phil Morgan with my um, mentor, friend, coach, and co-teacher John O'Hagan is with me today to look at this position. I think it's a very interesting one. This came up in the late round of the tournament last weekend in Novi in Michigan. I was playing Gary Bauer, who went on to win the tournament, and I'm going to show you why Gary Bauer wins tournaments and why he beat me. I am red, and I am losing. I have 3 points in a match to 11. He has 6 points in a match to 11. It's 8 away, 5 away. So he is 5 away from winning. I'm 8 away from winning, and those are the scores that matter. And I'm red, and I'm on roll. And the first question now, which is a question you should ask before every roll, is there some cube action here? Should I be thinking about doubling? And it immediately hit me that, wait a minute here, I'm going to lose my market if I hit him, and I'm probably going to win this game if I hit him, and maybe I should be doubling here. So I came up with my decision, but I'm sure that my approach was not exactly accurate because I got confused a little bit along the way. I ended up doing the right thing, but I would love to know, and I think you would all too, what is the right way to decide whether or not you should double this position? And that's why John is here. So, John, take it away.
All right, Phil. The first thing to realize is that this is mainly a non-gammon-ish position. Not totally, but close to it. Red could win a gammon if red hits, and blue enters with 1-6 or 1-4, or even if blue just doesn't do that, but if blue just dances too long and red manages to bear all of its checkers off and win running gammon, could happen, but it's mainly a non-gammon-ish position. So over the board, you want to make things as simple as possible, and you don't want to get sidetracked with these minor little issues like gammons in positions where they're very unlikely to begin with. But basically here, this is sort of a position where probably your non-gammon-ish doubling window opens right around 50% and closes when the opponent has a marginal take pass.
So a doubling window, that means that the lowest point at which you should give the cube up to the point where you've lost your market.
Yes.
Now, how did you know that your doubling window opens at 50%?
Well, the opponent's naive take point, and by that I mean if the opponent just takes and never redoubles, at this score it's going to be right around the normal 25%. So therefore it follows logically that your minimum doubling point is also right around the normal 50%.
I see.
You are a small favorite here because you have the 17 numbers that hit, which make you an overwhelming favorite, and a position that you should know. If you don't know, you should know that in this position, if red misses, then blue will be on roll, and red will still win that position, will hit about 15% of the time. And in addition to those 15% wins...
Oh, wait, let's find out where you got that 15%. If red misses, assuming that he leaves his 2 checkers on the 17 point, there are 16 rolls where blue does not get by, where red will get another shot, and red will hit those anywhere from, he'll have a 31% chance of hitting, pardon me,
sure.
If blue comes to here, and he'll have another 17 shots if blue were to stay here. He only stays here if he rolls double sixes, so you can't count on that. So the combination of the fact that you're going to get shots all the times that he doesn't get by, and you hit those about maybe your average around, you told me, around 35% of the time, that's where you get 15%.
Yes, exactly right, yeah.
Okay.
And then in addition to those hitting chances on the next shake, red can also get lucky and just win the race. Although red's a pretty big underdog, it's far from hopeless, and I'm using the adjustments in the eyesight method for the wasted pips, and then using the Kleinman racing formula, I come up with about 10% racing chances for red. So therefore, let's recap. If red hits one of his 17 numbers, let's just assume he always wins. That's 17 wins. On the other 19 numbers, he's going to win 15% of those. So 15% of 19 is a little less than 3. Just call it 3 to make it easy. So that brings us up to 20 wins. And then if that doesn't happen, that leaves, 17 plus 3 is 20. That leaves 16 numbers where he wins about 10% of those. So we'll call that 1.5 more wins. So altogether, we're looking at about 4.5 plus 17, 21.5 wins, which is about 60%. Okay. Now, in a money game, this would not be a good double, because on those sequences where you fail to hit and you stay there, blue will be offering an almost perfectly efficient redouble. So regardless if you have a take or not, your expected loss in each of those 19 games is going to be right around -1 point per game. So therefore, if you were to double this position in a money game, it would be a big mistake, and actually blue should beaver it. But here, this is not a money game. You are trailing, and not by a huge amount, but 5 away, 8 away is a decent lead for blue. And if you roll something that doesn't hit and you stay there on the 17, should blue redouble? Well, as I said, in a money game, yes, definitely you should. But this is not a money game. So let's think what your take point would be on a 4 cube. Okay? And that is something that over the board, I would just use some of these rules of thumb that I have. I would say that the trailer's naive 4 cube take point, meaning if red just takes the 4 cube and never redoubles, would be a little less than the normal 25%. It would be about 23.5% would be the number I'd use over the board. But that's really naive, because he's going to be real aggressive with redoubling to 8 at this score. So let's think about if red were to redouble to 8 in this game, what is blue's take point on an 8 cube? And the answer there is if blue were to drop, he'll be ahead, or actually he'll be trailing 5 away, 4 away, which gives him about 42, 43%, call it 42%. Winning chances. If he were to take and lose, he'll lose the match. Take and win.
Wait a minute. I think you may. I could be wrong either. I'm not following it. You got it backwards. If red were to drop the re cube, he would be losing 8 away, 3 away.
No.
If blue recubes red to 4 and red drops, red would be losing 8. He would be losing 8 away. 3 away.
I'm not saying that red would drop a 4 cube. I'm saying that if red misses the shot here and blue redoubles to 4, what is red's true take point? We're trying to figure that out. Okay. As I said, if red were to just take the 4 cube and never redouble, you'd need about 23.5%.
Gotcha.
But realistically, he's going to be redoubling real aggressively at this score. So the blue's 8 cube take point is pretty darn high. It's actually his match winning chances if he would have just dropped. Because if he drops, he will be trailing 5 away, 4 away, which gives him about 42% match winning chances. He takes the 8 cube and loses this game, he'll lose the match. Take the 8 cube and win the game, he'll win the match. So therefore, his blue's 8 cube take point is 42%.
Okay.
So therefore, red's 4 cube take point is a lot lower than 23.5. Because 23.5 is about what he would need if he just took and never redoubled. But since blue's 8 cube take point is so much higher than normal, you can usually deduct about 3/4 of the product of his naive take point, which is 23.5 times the opponent's recube take point at the next level, which is 42%. So 23.5 times 42 is roughly 25 times 40. So that's about 10. 70 or 75% of that is 7.5. So in other words, you can deduct about 7.5% from the 23.5 for cubic, which makes it about 16%. Okay. And so that would be when Red would have a marginal take pass, when if Blue's winning chances were 80, if he would win the position 84% of the time after a miss. And as we've already estimated, Red is well above 16% when he misses, because he hits and wins about 15%. And then on the times when he misses, he still wins about 10% of those games and races. Okay? So, bottom line, I think the fact that Blue should not be redoubling before when Red misses is enough for Red to offer an initial double in this position.
Okay, so your analysis, you would have gone through all this over the board? Everything you just told me you would have gone through over the board in your head?
Well, no, not really. But I mean, this is a video. I mean, over the board, over the board, you can't spend, 10 minutes on every cube that comes up. But,
okay, so let me tell you what I did over the board. Over the board, I said, I did a lot of what you did. I'm very proud of myself, and part of the reason I did a lot of what you did is because I've learned a lot of this from you in the past, and working with you, giving lessons and learning from you. I knew that I hit 17 times, and I knew that most of the time that when I miss, I'm staying there, and I know I'm going to pick up that extra 15%. And I did come up with about 60% winning chances, and I asked myself, if I miss, will he redouble? And that's where I was wrong. Because I assumed, because I'm so used to playing money games and normal match scores, I assumed that he would redouble. And I know in a money game I would pass this if he redoubled, because he's up way so much in the race that having those hits when he doesn't get by me isn't enough to take. So I pretty well assumed he would redouble, and I already made up my mind that the heck with it. When he redoubles, I'm taking, because I'm not going to just let him go ahead 8-3 in this match. I'm going to gamble. I know Gary Bauer's a very fine player. And even if he wasn't, I think I like my odds better taking. So I already made my decision that I'm taking the recube, and I assumed I was getting recube. Wrongly assumed that I was getting recube. And as I did Woolsey's Law first, I asked myself, is he taking? And I said, of course I'm taking. If I'm blue, you can't drop this cube. So if your winning chances are 40%, it's because I came up with what you came up with. You've got to take the cube. You're not going to. I don't have calculated the exact take point, but it's got to be a lot over 40%. So I went ahead and whipped the cube correctly, and Gary took the cube properly, and all of John's actions, which would have been much more accurate, and like we said, he wouldn't have done it all over the board, but he would have come to the same conclusion. And sure enough, it's a big double, it's a big take, and as you can see, John's numbers that he came up with are pretty close. This shows a cubeless winning chance of 58%. And as we all know, Red's going to win something more than 58% because he's going to have the power of holding the cube, so that he gains something on that. But again, John was approximating wins and losses. We're close enough to the 60-40 John was talking about. Huge double, huge take. Now let's talk about one other thing that I was worried about, that I want to talk about at this point before we get into the recube and what happened. I knew what I was doing if I rolled a 6. I knew what I was doing if I didn't roll a 6. With most rolls, I'm going to stay there. How am I going to play a double 5? How am I going to play a double 4? Those are numbers that put me close in the race, but I'm still behind and he's on roll, and I wasn't quite sure how to play it. So the first question I have for you, you people who are watching, let's assume that you also doubled and that you played somebody who took, and now you rolled double 5. How would you play it? Think about it for just a second, and let's see how John would play it, and let's see what's right, and let's see why. Because I found this kind of a difficult question to ask, and over the board, I was having such trouble answering it for a while. I just decided, please don't roll double 5s. That was my thinking over the board. So give it some thought. You can pause this video if you need more time, and assuming you have come up with your conclusion now that you know how to play double 5s, John, what would you do and why?
first thing that you want to do is to decide if you're close enough in the race just to turn this into a straight race or not. And so if you were to play 17 to 7 twice, okay, that would give you a pip count of 69. And let's see, what kind of adjustments would you need to make to either of those? Your side, you have to add 1 pip because you have 1 extra crossover than, or 2 extra crossovers than blue. So that's 2 more pips. So that would give you 71. And blue, you'd have to add 2 extra pips to blue's count because blue's got 5 checkers on the 3-point line. So it would be 71, and he would have 67. 67 on roll against 71. What kind of cubeless chances does that give blue? Well, let's see here. That would be, I would estimate cubeless around 68-32 in favor of blue. And the fact that he owns a cube, his true chances would be a bit higher than that because you can always find an efficient cube every now and then.
So you think red would win the game about 30% of the time if he made this play?
Yeah, 32, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Now, now let's look at, put them back there and play 17 to 2 and 7 to 2. Now, you still get a shot, I believe, with 14 numbers. Anything that totals 5 pips or less, plus double sixes leaves a shot. And on the other hand, this leaves blue with lots of really strong numbers, like numbers where he will lose his market by a ton. For example, 6-2, 2-2, or anything that hits and lifts and you dance, or maybe you enter but don't hit back. Those are all really big market-losing sequences. And when the opponent owns the cube, you actually, if the choice is otherwise really close, you should lean towards leaving sort of all-or-nothing type shots. Because in an all-or-nothing type position, owning the cube does blue very little good. If blue rolls a really good number, blue will lose his market by a mile and will almost certainly have won if there's no cube anyway. And blue will just double you out. So that's about the same result. Let's try to estimate how often red can win here. With 14 direct shots, you hit about a third of those, so that's almost 5 wins right there. And how about the other 22 numbers? Okay. How many jokers does blue have here? 6-2. Let's see. 6-3, 6-2, 6-1. 5-5 doesn't hit. That's a joker.
Double 3's a joker.
Yeah, I'm just going through. From the
top. Okay. Go ahead.
4-4 is pretty much a joker. 4-3, 4-3, 3-3. 3-2, 2-2. So I get about 10 jokers. 6-3. Let's see. 6-5. I missed that earlier. 6-4, 6-3, 6-2, 6-1. That's 8. 5-4, 4-4, 4-3. It's actually 12. I must have miscounted. So 12 jokers where maybe you win 10% of those. Okay? So let's say you win one of those.
Because even after you roll a joker and you're on the bar, once in a while you get a shot and hit it.
Yeah. So we're talking so far, the universe we've looked at the 14 numbers where it leads you a shot, and we're saying you win 5 of those, and the 12 jokers, where you win about one of those. So that's about 6 wins so far. And that is from a total of 26 numbers. Of the other 10, you are a clear underdog, but they're not really good for him. So maybe you win 2 or 3 of those, I think.
John, aren't you also forgetting the times where he leaves a shot and you miss? You're still going to win some of those in a race.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I mean that's counted as. You are right, actually. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you can't just narrow it down to the 16
So actually, we are thinking about 9 plus 12 jokers. So it should be 24 games, and you should win about, quarter of those, maybe not quite a quarter, 5 or 6 of those. So that brings you up to about 30% wins as well. So given the fact the opponent owns the cube, I would think you should make this play rather than
Okay, so let's go back to the original, and let's see what the Extreme Gammon says. Extreme Gammon clearly says don't run with double 5s. Stay back and wait for the shot. And John's estimate is right on. When you make the right play, you win right about 32% of the time. The right play being leaving a checker there. And running with both checkers is a pretty big error. It's not in the, here it is right here. It's about a 5% error, not horrible. It's not that big a difference. So after you get into it, the difference isn't huge, but like I said, over the board, I was trying to figure out what I would do. I started doing this exact same thing John was just doing and saying to myself, first of all, the odds of my rolling a double 5 are 1 out of 36, and the difference doesn't seem to be that big where I'm going to worry about it. So I dismissed it. Now, this is part of what I learned from Perry. When you are looking at 2 plays and you're thinking that the difference between the 2 plays isn't huge, then just make your best guess and go on. Don't do your brain damage there. The biggest part of the brain damage needed to be whether or not I doubled. Now, what happened? I doubled. He took, and I rolled a 3-2. I rolled a 3-2, and Gary redoubled. Now, I'm not here to make fun of Gary. It was a mistake to redouble. Absolutely wrong. And we all make mistakes, and I can say that, okay, Gary just made a mistake on this play. He should not have redoubled. John already told you it was wrong to redouble here. Let me show you that John is right. But I was also wrong, too. I thought he was going to redouble me, and I said to myself, there's no way in the world I'm going to give the additional cube unless I'm willing to take the recube. And I was certainly right about the take on the recube. It would have been a big error for me to drop. Of course, I took the recube, and he went past me. I didn't hit the shot, and he went on to win the match and went on to win 3 more matches and then get to the finals against Ben and win 2 in a row. I am patting myself on the back for doubling this to begin with and for using the ideas and concepts that John is talking about. And I did the same thing that John would do over the board. I wouldn't have gone through every number, but by going through these numbers and the detail that John does, which is a ridiculous amount of detail to ever try over the board, but the fact that you know how to do this and you understand the concepts in practice is what's going to allow you to make good judgments over the board, to have a good feel for the fact that your doubling window is open here, that you should be giving the cube, that you should at least take the recube, and then if you were blue, you would worry a lot more about whether or not you should redouble or not. So I always talk about how when you learn to do karate, you do it in slow motion. When you learn to hit a tennis swing, you do it in slow motion. You take lots of times and you do it very slowly and you go through all the details in practice so that you can identify the patterns and do it more quickly over the board. I thought this is a fun, fascinating position. I do want to congratulate Gary for taking the cube and for playing very well. Otherwise, he's a very, very fine player, and the proof of my feelings about it is I bought him in the Calcutta. So I wasn't that terribly unhappy when he won the tournament. I was still happy when he beat me. John, anything more to add about this position, positions like this?
Let's talk a little bit more about Blue's recube here. So put the cube on the left side. Okay. And something I've noticed over the years is that when you have a decent or large lead in the match, when you're thinking about redoubling, it's almost always a mistake unless you are real close to the opponent's point of last take, or real close to the opponent's true take point. And here, as we estimate over the board, red only needs about 16% chances to win. As you can see here, red wins at 23%. So you're 7% plus away from the opponent's point of last take. And that's really too far to be redoubling when you have a decent or large lead. And then also, notice that since red wins this 23% of the time, Bill, it would be still a take and a money game, right? I mean, there's virtually gammons for either side here.
Let's see. Yeah, a small take and a money game because your take point is about 21.5% with the cube big. Yeah. So yeah, now, sure is a small take and a money game.
In a money game, the cube big's quite a bit less in this position because if you hit and blue dances, you've lost your market by a mile. Whereas if and that's where most of your wins come, but the small number of your wins that come from racing, you might be able to find an efficient redouble somewhere along the line in those games.
Let me add one more point to what John said. Why blue shouldn't redouble here. One of the reasons that I love Wolf's Law so much is that it asks you to ask what your opponent would do. Well, I doubt that there's very many players in the world that would erroneously drop this position because you're losing. You hate to go down in the match 8-3. You're much more likely, if you're going to make a mistake, if anything, you're going to make a mistake of taking too much, not dropping too much. So if there's a chance that your opponent's going to make a mistake, here it's just the opposite. Even a bad player is going to make a mistake the right way. In these positions, and you're going to be more desperate to take them through red. So if the score is reversed and you're winning and you're not quite sure that you should be doubling, you've got a real good reason to ship the cube because the other player, if you're losing and the other player is winning, the other player who's winning might tend to be too conservative and might make a mistake and drop. But that's not very likely to happen when the opposite is true. When I'm losing bad, or my opponent is losing badly, he's much more likely to take when he shouldn't than to drop when he shouldn't. So you won't get a mistake on the drop here. You're not going to get an easy mistake by giving this cube. And that's another reason why you wait until you probably almost lost your market. And by the way, I'm going to quote my good friend John O'Hagan on this one. Lots of times you might even wait too long and lose your market, and you'll be surprised that you didn't lose your market. Because even when you lost your market and you think they should drop, and even if they don't have enough to take, they're taking anyway. So that's another reason why you can wait longer when you're winning. Because even if you get too good to double, or they've lost their market, they're still taking. Because it's human nature to be more desperate and to gamble more when you're losing. John, thank you so much for your analysis, for your comments, and for your donating this time to the USBGF. And thank you all for watching and supporting the USBGF. We'll be seeing John on more videos in the future. Bye-bye.
Thank you.